Hello, everyone, and welcome back. This week, we're looking at one of the most fascinating and honestly one of the most misunderstood periods in American history, the Progressive Era. When most people hear the word progressive, they immediately think it means people who wanted progress. And that's true, but it also doesn't tell us very much. The real question historians ask is, progress toward what? Because Americans around 1900 didn't agree on the answer. Some wanted safer factories, some wanted cleaner cities, some wanted to regulate giant corporations, others wanted to end child labor. Women fought for the right to vote. African Americans demanded equal citizenship. Some reformers wanted to protect the environment. Others wanted to ban alcohol. Still others believed government should regulate nearly every aspect of society if it produced what they considered a better nation. In other words, progressivism wasn't one movement. It was dozens of reform movements happening at the same time. Some expanded freedom, some limited freedom. Some made America more democratic, others reinforced racial inequality. And that's why historians still debate the progressive era today. So here's the question I want you thinking about throughout this lecture. Can government solve society's problems without creating new ones? That question isn't just about 1900. It's one Americans still ask today. Let's begin by talking about why progressivism emerged in the first place. Think back to the last few chapters. Industrialization transformed America almost overnight. Millions of immigrants arrived. Cities exploded in size. Factories multiplied. Railroads connected the nation. Corporations became larger than anything Americans had ever seen. All of this created incredible wealth. But it also created incredible problems. Imagine moving from a rural farming community to a city where thousands of people crowded into apartment buildings with poor sanitation. Factories operated 12 hours a day. Children worked dangerous jobs. Pollution filled rivers. Political corruption was common. Food safety laws barely existed. If you've ever seen photographs from New York or Chicago around 1900, they look almost unbelievable compared to today. The question wasn't whether America had become richer, it had. The question was whether society was keeping up with economic change. Today, we sometimes have similar conversations about technology. Think about artificial intelligence. AI has enormous potential. It can improve medicine, education, scientific research, and productivity. But it also raises questions. Should AI be regulated? Who owns the data? What happens to workers whose jobs become automated? How should governments respond? Those debates aren't identical to the progressive era, but they're similar because both involve people asking, how should society respond when technology changes faster than the rules governing it? That's exactly what progressives were asking. One of the biggest concerns was corruption. Many city governments were controlled by political machines. Political bosses exchanged jobs and favors for votes. Government contracts often benefited political allies instead of taxpayers. Progressives believed government should become more professional and less corrupt. Instead of political loyalty determining who got a government job, they argued that expertise should matter. Today, we often take professional civil servants for granted, but around 1900, reforming government itself was considered revolutionary. Another major concern involved public health. It's easy to forget how dangerous everyday life could be. Cities often lacked clean drinking water, garbage piled up in streets, diseases spread rapidly. Food wasn't carefully inspected. Milk could be contaminated. Meat packing plants often operated under unsanitary conditions. Then in 1906, Upton Sinclair published The Jungle. Interestingly, Sinclair intended to expose the exploitation of immigrant workers. Instead, readers became horrified by his descriptions of the meat industry. People suddenly realized they didn't know what was in their food. Congress responded with the Meat Inspection Act and the Pure Food and Drug Act. Think about that the next time you walk into Walmart or your local grocery store. Most of us don't inspect every ingredient before buying food. We assume there are safety standards. Those assumptions exist because reformers fought to establish them over a century ago. Progressives also believe cities should become healthier places to live. That meant parks, libraries, playgrounds, public schools, building codes, sewage systems, fire departments, trash collection. These things seem ordinary today, but someone had to argue they were worth paying for. One of the most important reformers was Jane Addams. Addams founded Hull House in Chicago. Hull House wasn't simply a charity, it became a community center. Immigrants could learn English, children attended educational programs, families received healthcare assistance, workers developed job skills, women organized political reform. Hull House reflected a simple but powerful idea. Poverty wasn't always caused by personal failure. Sometimes people simply lacked opportunity. That was a major shift in thinking. Instead of asking, what's wrong with this individual? Progressives increasingly asked, what's wrong with the system? That's a question we still hear today. Whether we're discussing healthcare, education, homelessness, or access to technology, many modern debates focus on whether problems are caused primarily by individuals or by larger social systems. Jane Addams believed communities had responsibilities toward one another. Women became some of the most influential progressive reformers. Now, remember something important. Before 1920, women couldn't vote in national elections. That didn't stop them from becoming politically active. In fact, because they couldn't always participate directly through elections, many women organized clubs, settlement houses, churches, charities, and reform organizations. They became leaders in campaigns for public health, education, labor reform, and child welfare. One issue particularly attracted attention: child labor. Today, it's difficult to imagine 8-year-olds working 12-hour shifts in factories or coal mines. Around 1900, however, it was common. Many families depended on children's wages to survive. Reformers argued that childhood should be spent learning rather than laboring. Photographer Lewis Hine helped change public opinion by documenting children working in dangerous conditions. His photographs did something statistics alone couldn't accomplish. They made people see the problem. Today, photographs and videos still shape public opinion. Think about how quickly a video recorded on a cell phone can influence conversations about workplace safety, policing, natural disasters, or humanitarian crises. Visual evidence remains incredibly powerful. Technology has changed. Human psychology hasn't. Another movement focused on alcohol. This was the temperance movement. Students sometimes laugh about prohibition because they know it ultimately failed. But let's understand why many progressives supported it. Many women associated alcohol with domestic violence. Employers associated drinking with workplace accidents. Religious organizations associated alcohol with poverty and moral decline. Whether they were correct or not isn't the point. They believed reducing alcohol would improve American society. Again, notice a recurring pattern. Progressives believed government could solve social problems through legislation. That's a very important idea. Not everyone agreed. Some Americans believed government should protect individual liberty instead. This tension between public welfare and personal freedom remains part of American politics today. Think about debates over public health during COVID-19, mask requirements, vaccination policies, business closures. Whether you agreed with those policies or not, Americans were asking a familiar question: how much authority should government have during a public crisis? That's exactly the kind of question progressives debated, even though the circumstances were very different. Perhaps the most famous progressive victory involved women's suffrage. For decades, activists such as Susan B. Anthony, Carrie Chapman Catt, Alice Paul, and countless local organizers argued that democracy remained incomplete while half the population lacked the right to vote. Their arguments weren't all identical. Some appealed to natural rights. Others argued women would improve politics by bringing greater morality into public life. Still others pointed out the obvious contradiction. How could America call itself a democracy while excluding millions of adult citizens from elections? The campaign required decades of organizing: marches, petitions, speeches, arrests, public demonstrations. Eventually, in 1920, the 19th Amendment guaranteed women the right to vote nationwide. It's important to remember that democracy didn't simply expand on its own. People organized, they protested, they persuaded, they voted. History is full of rights that existed only because ordinary people demanded them. So, by the early 20th century, America looked very different than it had just a generation earlier. Government was becoming more active, citizens increasingly expected reform, women were reshaping public life, cities were changing, businesses faced greater regulation. But the progressive era also had contradictions. Many progressives wanted more democracy while denying democracy to African Americans. Many fought corruption while supporting segregation. Many expanded government while limiting individual freedoms in other areas. And that's where we're headed next. In part two, we'll explore Theodore Roosevelt, trust busting, conservation, Jim Crow, Booker T. Washington, W.E.B. Du Bois, and why one of America's greatest reform movements also left behind some of its deepest injustices. I'll see you in part two.